We're here and we're going to do a developer discussion from your side, and you built out all the infrastructure for all of the web clients so that we could theme and structure our web client. And let me just go through just a little bit about why we did that. So here we have Chime V5 landing page, and this is coming through the browser. So these are FAQs, and into Chime V5, you can either come in through a Teams client, which is sort of the majority of the use cases, or you could stage out a web client, and you might put that web client on a Sharepoint site or on a portal site. And after our early experiences with Chime V4, we learned that we really want to be able to theme this web client. So here we have a web client with a custom background. We have a custom avatar. We have an adaptive card that's being rendered. And we also have some structure around this. So moving forward, we know that we would want to brand this for the company. So the company would have their own background, probably their logo. They might have some custom avatars. And then if they want to theme these adaptive cards, which they can, they would just use the adaptive cards. So here the requirement was create a structure so that we could have a container that would house the web client, and that we could also theme the web client, and we could also even have different launch locations so that we could launch off a button down in the lower corner, maybe attached to the right, or even pop up automatically. So my requirements were themable. We can customize really everything, including the background, and that we can then take this and we can push it down into the tenant. We can have it installed in the tenant. We can provide some default themes, and then the customers could customize that. So how about we'll turn it over to you, Patrick, and you can walk us through sort of an overview of how you were thinking about it, what you put in place to build it out, and then maybe show us around some code and some examples of what you've got going.
Yep. Thank you, Peyton. And kind of first to cover what technologies we're using, Chime V5 is built on top of Orchard Core. And then for the web client, we're using Bot Framework Web Client. And basically those two things allow us to make very modular web client themes where we can, as Peyton described, add CSS, custom scripts, custom bot framework style sets to have very customizable and brandable web client experience for customers. And part of the benefit of using Orchard is we can lay down recipes that give really good default web client themes for customers when they create a tenant. And then if they want to create more complex web client themes, they can do that using the base chat themes, button themes, and then creating a web client instance, which will be embedded on a web page or a portal page. Bot Framework is also very solid for us because it already has built-in integration with Teams. So any of our Teams chats already route through there. Has a built-in web client. We can utilize AD authentication to get user info. And then additionally, we can add CSS or custom style sets to it. Essentially, this is two main features that we have that enable us to have the web client, first of all, and then also have web client themes. It's the web client and web client themes features. Those can be just enabled from admin, and when those are enabled, everything you see here is available. So taking a look at basically the Chime V5 admin area, we have a couple pages that have all our themes, whether that be for the button or for the actual web client itself. Essentially, if you create a base chat theme in here, you can title it, give it a description, and then add some style set theming. This is all bot framework style set themes. There's a lot of documentation on Microsoft's GitHub relating to essentially the modified CSS properties that they have in there. And you can get a lot of mileage out of just using this. Additionally, when the web client starts up, there's a lot of classes and IDs that you can key off of to modify the CSS in here. And you can see for this one, we have a decent amount of CSS to add some additional styling that we couldn't quite get out of just the style set alone. In addition, you can add some custom JS in here. You can give the web client a title, give that navbar a title, add in a branding image if you wanted to, and then have a icon image if you would want to use one of those instead of the default icon image that you get up here. We also have a couple additional settings regarding sound notifications if you get a new chat message, starting the chat automatically, or using Microsoft pre-chat form to sign in with Azure AD. Kind of the next step in creating a custom web client theme would be getting that button theme. And this button theme relates to the opening of the web client, and then also covers what type of window it's going to be in. So far, we've made ones where it opens up into a new window. We have ones that are embedded on the side of the page, and then ones that open up into a modal right in the middle of the page. You can mess around with different sizing on each of these. And then essentially in here we have the styling of the button, or the HTML of the button, and then the styling of the button. In some of them we also have some scripts that we use to kind of initially load that modal, and then have one for ending chat and closing that window. Once you've created the button theme and the base chat theme, you're able to essentially combine the two of them and pick from the different themes that you've created to make a combination of the two that's unique. And I'll go ahead and show some examples of what those look like. And in here, we also have the web client sandbox, which allows you to take a look at all of the code related to displaying that button and then opening up the web client. If you want to test around and make some changes, the sandbox here is a good spot to be able to make changes without breaking anything. So in this example, if you have a portal page and you want the chat button to be on the top right, you can go ahead and have it there. Click on it, and then it opens up a new window, and then you can move this anywhere you want. It'll start up a chat immediately, and then we have a nice background, a nice transparent web client in here, and we started a chat already. I'll go ahead and close this one out and show we can have the same button, but it opens up the chat with a different background, similar transparent design, and then into a modal in the center of the page, where additionally we can have the chat start. And then if I wanted to close it, I can just hit that X button. This one is a slightly different looking one, where we have a support button on the bottom right. And when we do that, it opens up a transparent window above. And so if you want some of the context of the portal page up, you can keep that and then still have a chat session, for example. Similarly, you can have that same button open up into a new window, or have it open up a modal, like so. And then, as Peyton described in the beginning, you can have a branding logo icon appear. Any of these logos can be customized to be your company logo. And then any of these adaptive card text items can also be updated to have relevant info based on how you want your chat workflow to proceed. All right. Before I jump into some code, does anyone have questions or want to see anything?
Hey, Patrick, you touched a little bit on the bot framework, that there are a lot of settings in bot framework that you can set. Are those the settings that, what are those settings, and how would those settings change things, and where can people go just to understand what those settings might be that bot framework is exposing?
Yep. So these are style set or style options. And if you go over here, just to quickly kind of describe what you were, oops, where is that? Describe what you were asking. These style set options are essentially modified CSS that Microsoft has kind of provided with the Bot Framework web client, so that you can very quickly update stuff such as like the background color, um, the background colors of any of the text messages that you send or receive. Additionally, you can add those avatar images that we were seeing in some of the chats. So for example, the avatar image that shows up um, when Chime initially sends us a message, that can be configured in here, as well as um, simple stuff like border radiuses or how big the text box or send box down here are. And then here's some of the documentation I was referring to regarding those default style options.
Got it. So all of those styles are really bot framework styles that we're going to use. We've just provided a nice field or container where we can store those, and where those can be customized and then applied to a theme that we're using.
Exactly.
Got it. That makes a lot of sense.
And then if I can just go ahead and show real quick, I'll show what the default what that default bot framework web client would look like. It's in comparison to some of the style options we've made. It's just kind of a default web client look. You can go ahead and start a chat, and then you'll see some of the kind of default adaptive card behavior that it has. Yep. And so you can tell we've done a good amount of styling on some of those custom web client items to change it from this default look over to those customized themes that we have.
Got it. And all of those themes, those just are you've created those, and then we automatically push those down or install those when the tenant stood up. This list that we're looking at right here, that just appears as part of the tenant, but we could either go and kind of quickly create new ones, or customers or consultants could go in and modify these. And there are a lot of sort of knobs they can turn and a lot of customization they can make, but there's a lot provided just out of the box, isn't there?
Exactly. Yep. These are all available out of the box.
Got it. Hey, and is it just possible? I know that no one would never ever really do it because we're automatically doing it sort of for them. But in terms of just showing where these features are added as part of the feature area, I know you had a screenshot of it, but just to sort of give some context on how they can be installed as well.
Yep. So in the Chime V5 admin area, we have all of these features that can be enabled, disabled. And then if you just go ahead and search web client, we can see there's that Chime V5 web client and then web client themes. And so when your Chime V5 tenant is set up initially, we'll have those enabled, and in doing so, all of the default chat themes will get added into this Chime
Got it.
deployment
Yep.
submenu. Yep.
That makes a lot of sense, and that's just going to happen automatically for folks. All right. Well, I didn't mean to sidetrack you at all. I guess if you want to sort of show us the next level under the covers, we can jump
Yep.
in.
Yep. So I think initially I'll cover some of the Chime V5 web client code that we have written, and then jump into some of those base button themes and base chat themes. Let's see. So for the web client, we have a controller, and within that we can configure some of the web client options through these models. Grab that direct line token and some of the web client options that we have. Basically to get a connection set up with Bot Framework and initiate a chat session. Once we do so, we have a couple routes where we'll get that tenant ID of your Chime tenant, and then we'll also check for where did I put that? Oh yeah, we'll check for a couple query strings where we'll check for if you have it pointed at a web client ID, and then if you have it pointed at a pipeline ID. Between the two of those, we'll have the ability to send you to a different web client or a different pipeline. So you can route users into, let's say you have a tech help desk pipeline, and then maybe you have one that's related to HR or business. You can direct it to a different pipeline based on that, and then you can also direct to a different pipeline ID. And then here we have that chat CSHTML file. Using this, we're able to essentially modify any of those web client themes, and also added a bunch of values, such as style set settings, if you want to start the chat automatically, some of the navbar settings, and then also be able to basically get all of the styling set up in here, and then any JavaScript that you would be using if you set some up in that base chat theme. And then on top of that, we would look for the base button theme that you've created, and if it calls the web client in here, we would display this this chat CSHTML within that button that you've created or wherever it launches.
Yep, very cool. So you got this is the C# code behind the scenes, and this is creating Orchard core modules, which are then exposed as features. Just two questions. One is, as part of this, do you create any new content type definitions? And the other is, how do you pre-stage those themes out automatically into tenants?
Yeah, that's a good question. So we create a couple new content types and content items through this web client themes project that we have, which is for that web client themes feature. We build out a base button theme, a base chat theme, a web client instance, and then a web client sandbox. And each of these have fields within them. And if you're creating a net new one, it would just have all of these empty, and then you can fill them out. But when we initially stand up a Chime server, we have this recipe that runs and creates all of the default content. And so in here, you can see it basically populates all of those Orchard content item fields and gives descriptions, creates new content items, and then basically populates all of the style sets, custom scripts, CSS for any of those base chat themes. And then if I scroll down a little bit lower, we can see we also have some of those web client instance items. And then later on, we'll have some of the
Got
base
it.
button themes.
All right. So for us, as part of your module, you have some controllers. You have as part of your installation, you create some content definitions. In Orchard, that's important because those are basically, let's just say, documents with a certain content definition. And then once you create that definition with that structure, you can pour content into them, and that's what your recipe is doing to stand up all those default themes that we see.
Exactly.
And then with Orchard, we kind of get the rendering of those for free. We get the list of all those themes, and all of that management kind of just happens automatically. And then we also get the UI to edit those. We also get automatically once you create the content definition.
Yes. Yep.
Got it. All right. Anything else that you'd want to show down at the sort of the C# layer before we sort of zoom back up? Guess we have
Let's see.
the ability to create the underlying structure, the ability to sort of pour all the different themes in. There's a lot of code there. And we're sort of just giving a little bit of behind the scenes. But yeah, anything else you'd want to show down there that jumps out, or you want to sort of zoom back up?
I think we'd be pretty good to zoom back up.
All right. And then just on one more, right now we are working on some other things as well, which would allow us to automatically push new updates down there. So let's just say that we created some new themes. We may want to deploy those new themes down to a client. So we're working on some ways to do that. And as customers onboard, they can also customize these to make them look exactly like the brand that they've created, whether that's background or logo or anything else there. And it's really wide open to be able to sort of tweak anything you'd want to tweak. All right, any final thoughts,
Yep.
Patrick?
Let's see.
How was it working with the bot framework, with the bot framework settings? Any tips on how you sort of thought about working with all the, because there are a lot of settings that you can use just to talk to the bot framework client. Any tips or any thoughts on that?
Yeah, one kind of tip that I would recommend is try and use those style sets as much as possible.
Yeah.
Because when you try and get into some of the CSS and the document structure of that bot framework web client, there's not too much documentation on that. And so it's a lot of trial and error to figure out which CSS rules will get applied, and trying not to override too many things that'll kind of come back to bite you later.
Yep. So, and then And then on your side, you've created a sandbox area for people to experiment with. They can always sort of look down into your settings and your JS and into your CSS to see how you've set that up. Where would they look for that? Would they just look at the combined instance of that before they look at the sandbox?
Yep. Yeah. So if you went into the web client instance, give me a second. Basically, whenever you have a web client instance set up,
Yeah,
if you click into one that's been created, all of the embed code gets generated for you down here.
yeah,
Um, and so, for example, on this one, it'll open up a new chat pop-out window, kind of pointing at that web client. And then if you just want to grab the web client ID associated with it, um, you can go over to the base chat theme for it, and then make any changes in here if you want to. Um, Otherwise, you can go to the web client sandbox and then just oops, sorry, I didn't copy. And you can just paste in all of this embed code over into there, and then just feel free to test out any of this once you create a new web client sandbox.
right on. So if you wanted to really mimic another, let's say chat client that you'd seen, you could get in there and you could tweak around that, and you could really customize that to make it look however you wanted.
Exactly. Yep.
Okay. And that embed code that you touched on there for a second, that's also the embed code that you would lift and that you might place in, say, a SharePoint or some other web client. You might take that embed code that you had and move that on down so you could get your web client to actually stage there.
Exactly. In a portal page or in SharePoint, would
Okay.
be perfect places to put this embed code.
And can you just cover how to get that embed code one more time?
Yep. Yeah, I can cover that. So if you're in the Chime admin area, you can just go to web client instances, and then either when you create a new one or if you click on one of these existing ones,
Yeah.
if you scroll down, we have this embed code listed in here,
Yeah.
and then you can just copy and paste this, um, play around with it, and then also just test to make sure it redirects to the correct pipeline and the correct web client that you want it to.
Got it. So that embed code's what you would actually lift, and you can move that into SharePoint. You can move that into your portal site. That embed code includes which pipeline you might want to call, which theming, all these other things that you would want.
Exactly. Yep.
Got it. All right. Very cool. Let's see. Anything else you want to cover?
I think that just about covers kind of everything related to web client theming.
I think it's terrific. So we'll also have some either one or more public FAQs up on that. We have some examples. The examples are provided as part of the tenant. Customers can take that and tweak it as they would want. And then it might be likely that more themes would come down, but we've got a really nice set to get started with. Oh, and then just one last question. Where are some of those images located? If someone wanted to just go see where some of those images are stored, where are we storing those?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Um, all of our content is stored in this media library, and then within that we have a web client folder
Yeah,
where you can find different backgrounds and then different user avatars that we have added by default.
got it. So if someone wanted to, they could go just almost swap out those backgrounds. If they wanted to keep the same name, they could, and they could swap out backgrounds, or they could add them and then just add new themes that use that background.
Yep. And then
Okay.
if there's any adaptive cards that have any logo images in them, they would be under this this branding folder. Typically it's going to be this logo.png or
Yeah.
card logo.png that are added.
Right. We're using card logo.png for all of our adaptive cards. So if a customer just stuck their graphic or their logo in there, under
Mhm.
card logo, all of the adaptive cards are going to get that automatically. And then the other is the logo.png, which is going to be another. And then the tenant logo would be the upper left-hand corner.
Exactly. Yep.
Right on. All right. That sounds great. Thanks for taking the time on that. I think we should be all set, and then we'll look forward to the FAQs and some excellent customer themes with this. All right. And let me go ahead and stop the recording. Thanks, Patrick.
All right. Awesome. Thanks, Peyton.
See ya. Okay. Bye-bye.